As the world falls silent and the night stretches around you, take a deep breath and let the calm embrace you. Tonight we journey with Lira, a young woman drawn by the haunting melody of the lost empire of the singing birds, a place of music and mystery. Let the gentle rhythm of the night guide you as Lira's adventure unfolds. Breathe deeply, relax, and allow the soothing song of the singing birds to carry you into a peaceful, dream-filled sleep. The story begins. In the distant kingdom of Oran, tales travelled like the murmur of streams beneath moonlight. They spoke of a hidden empire known only in whispers, the lost empire of the singing birds, a place of music and mystery. These were no ordinary birds. They were creatures woven from the breath of the world itself, guardians of songs that held the essence of forgotten secrets. Their city was said to float just beyond the edge of sight, veiled in eternal mist. A sanctuary only for the worthy and the willing. Not everyone who heard the tales believed them. Yet one young woman named Lira felt the call more keenly than most. As a child, she had once heard a faint melody drifting through the trees near her village. It was hauntingly beautiful, a sound that wrapped around her heart and lingered in her memory. In that fleeting song, she sensed a promise, an invitation to something greater, something ancient. Now, grown and no longer bound by the comforts of a home, she set forth, guided only by the memory of that melody and the untold stories it promised. She left at dawn, when the sky was painted in soft hues of grey and gold. The early morning fog clung to her skin, and as she walked, the world around her faded into silence. Her journey took her through vast meadows and winding paths, past rivers that flowed quietly, as if they too held secrets. She walked for days, following no road, her only guide the whisper of the song that lingered in her mind. Lira was no stranger to solitude, yet the stillness that accompanied her was unlike any she had known. It was a silence so deep, it seemed to echo with hidden voices, watching her every step. The further she walked, the stranger the land became. Trees grew taller, casting shadows that twisted and danced, and the air grew thick with an eerie calm. She felt as if the earth itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to unfold. As night fell, she reached the edge of a forest older than time. It was a place the villagers had called the Veil of Eternal Forest. Here, legend claimed, no light dared penetrate, and paths twisted upon themselves, trapping those who wandered too far. Many had ventured into its depths, but few returned with their wits intact, and fewer still spoke of what they had seen. But Lira was undeterred. She had come this far, and something inside her knew she must continue. She stepped into the forest, where the air grew colder, the silence even heavier, pressing upon her shoulders like a weight. Shadows pulled beneath towering trees, and strange sounds rustled just beyond her sight. as if unseen eyes watched her every move. She walked carefully, her footsteps soft on the moss-covered ground. The path ahead twisted, narrowing, then widening, bending like the curves of an ancient river. For what felt like hours, Lira wandered, each step both familiar and foreign. She lost herself in the patterns of the forest, the strange rhythm of silence punctuated by faint whispers, too soft to hear, yet too present to ignore. Just as her strength began to waver, she glimpsed a flicker of light through the trees, a faint, elusive glow. Her heart quickened, and with cautious hope, she followed it. The light led her to an ancient tree, taller and grander than any she had seen, its trunk twisted with age and wisdom. She felt a pull, a sensation that was neither fear nor certainty, but something in between, a calling. She knelt beside the roots, weary and lost, when a faint sound rose from the depths of the forest. It was a song, soft and distant, like the hum of wind through a canyon. It filled the air with a melody so achingly beautiful that it drew tears to her eyes. She could not understand the words, but the music wrapped around her, filling her with a sense of wonder and longing. The song spoke to her, a language beyond words, a whisper that promised she was not alone, that there was something waiting just beyond her reach. Lira closed her eyes, letting the melody guide her, its tune echoing through the hollow places of her heart. As she listened, the forest seemed to change, its shadows lifting, its paths aligning, as if the song had revealed a hidden order to the world around her. She followed the sound, her steps lighter, her spirit kindled by a strange certainty. Then, as she rounded a bend, the mist thickened, swirling like a living thing, and she felt the world shift beneath her feet. She was no longer in the veil of eternal forest, but somewhere else, somewhere both dream and reality. The trees thinned, revealing an endless field bathed in silver light, and in the distance, she glimpsed what appeared to be spires stretching toward the sky, shimmering in the glow of an unseen moon. The city of the singing birds lay before her, hidden no more. Lira stood at the edge of the forest, her heart suspended between fear and fascination as she stared at the fields stretching into twilight before her. The trees, gnarled and ancient, loomed over her like silent guardians. Here time felt like a forgotten thing, and shadows clung to the air, moving with an unspoken intent. There was no wind, no song, only silence so profound it seemed to reach into her soul, stoking a quiet, relentless yearning. As she took her first steps, the mist coiled around her soft as breath. Each step deeper into the veil of eternal forest felt like a step away from the world she had known, as if she were crossing into something beyond mortal understanding. The path wound in intricate patterns, narrowing, then widening, then splitting and rejoining like the trails of forgotten rivers. She could not remember how many turns she had taken, and the trees offered no guide, their trunks bent and twisted, their branches woven into darkened arches above her. Hours passed, though the sky remained an unbroken shade of dusk. She grew weary, yet no rest would come. The forest whispered her name, though she never saw the source of the voice. At times, she caught glimpses of things in the shadows, feathers glinting like starlight, eyes gleaming in the underbrush, a flash of color that vanished as soon as she turned her head. On the third night, or perhaps the 30th, time had unraveled like the coils of an old thread. She heard a rustling nearby. She turned to see a small bird perched on a low branch, watching her with a sharp, bright eye. It was a curious thing, black as night, but its feathers shone with hints of blue and violet when the dim light caught it. The bird tilted its head as if studying her, then took flight, circling her in a slow, deliberate pattern. Drawn by some instinct she couldn't explain, Lira followed the bird, her steps echoing its silent rhythm. It led her deeper, through a narrow passage between towering stones, where the air was thick and close. The mist grew denser until she could barely see her own hand before her, and the trees crowded her from all sides, their branches curving overhead in an eerie, vaulted arch. The bird flew faster now, as if urging her forward. Her heart raced with a strange exhilaration, and she no longer cared where she was going, only that she must keep following. Then, abruptly, the bird stopped mid-flight, landing on the root of an immense tree. This tree was unlike any she had seen in the forest. Its trunk was vast, knotted with age, and its roots spread out in all directions, intertwining with the earth like the fingers of an ancient hand. The branches stretched high above, crowned with leaves that shimmered faintly as if touched by the remnants of a distant star. The bird watched her for a moment, its eyes gleaming with something akin to understanding, then disappeared into the darkness. Lira took a hesitant step forward, her gaze fixed on the tree. She felt a compulsion to touch it, as though it held the answers to questions she had never asked. Placing her hand against the bark, she closed her eyes, feeling the rough texture beneath her fingers, and listened. At first, there was only silence. Then, from somewhere deep within the earth, a soft hum began, faint and distant, like the echo of a memory. It grew louder, resonating through her bones, filling her with a warmth that chased away the chill of the forest. The hum transformed, weaving itself into a melody, a tune that drifted upward like a forgotten lullaby. Lira opened her eyes, and the world around her had changed. The mist that had once choked her vision now glowed with an ethereal light, shimmering like a veil of woven stars. The trees seemed to pulse with life, their branches swaying in time with the melody. It was a song unlike any she had ever heard, one that transcended words and language, reaching straight into the core of her being. As she listened, images began to form in her mind. Visions of towering spires and brilliant colors, a city woven from light and shadow. She saw birds with feathers as radiant as jewels, their eyes filled with wisdom and sorrow, their voices carrying a melody that spoke of ages past and mysteries yet to unfold. The vision lingered only for a moment before fading back into the mist, but its impression remained, etched into her soul like the memory of a dream. When the song faded, the tree's branches parted, revealing a narrow path that led away from the ancient forest. She stepped forward, her heart pounding with a new sense of purpose, her doubts falling away like leaves in autumn. The mist thinned as she walked, and before her stretched a silver-lit field, vast and open under the starlit sky. In the distance, rising above the horizon, she saw it, the singing city, a place of shimmering towers and crystalline branches that seemed to touch the heavens. It hovered at the edge of her sight, elusive and half-formed, as if it were a dream woven into the fabric of the night. She felt an overwhelming urge to run, to reach the city before it faded once more into legend. The lost empire of the singing birds was close, closer than it had ever been, and Lira knew that the melody would guide her the rest of the way. Lira walked toward the city, her steps light as if carried by the rhythm of an unseen melody. The field stretched wide beneath her, bathed in a silvery glow that neither sun nor moon could explain. Before her lay the fabled singing city, a place that seemed both real and ethereal, a vision half-formed, flickering between substance and mist. The city rose from the earth in spiraling towers that curved like the flight of birds mid-air. The architecture was unlike anything she had ever seen, forged not by human hands, but by some otherworldly force that understood the secrets of the sky. Crystalline spires caught the light, scattering it in prismatic hues, while delicate arches connected the towers in complex patterns that whispered of both balance and freedom. Yet, it was not the sight of the city that struck Lira most deeply, but its sound. As she drew closer, she felt the air hum with a song that ebbed and flowed like waves on a distant shore. Each note hung suspended, lingering just long enough to shimmer in the cool air before it melted into the next. The city was alive with music, not a single melody, but a symphony of voices, weaving together in harmony so profound that it resonated within her, calling forth emotions she couldn't name. Lyra stepped onto the stone path that led into the heart of the city, her breath catching as she entered a realm that felt like a dream. Birds of every color and size filled the air, perched on crystalline branches and the ledges of the spiraling towers. Their feathers shimmered in iridescent hues, casting flashes of green, blue, and violet. Some had crests like crowns. Others bore tails that trailed like banners in the wind. And all of them watched her with an intensity that spoke of ancient knowledge. As she moved deeper into the city, the birds began to sing. Their song wasn't like anything she had heard in the forest or in the village. It was a language beyond words, a tapestry of sound that seemed to flow through her like a river. The melody wrapped around her, welcoming her, yet testing her at the same time. She could feel the weight of their gaze, as if they were measuring her worth, peering into her soul. In the center of the city stood a grand platform carved from crystal that glowed with an inner light. Here, the birds gathered in greater numbers, their voices blending into a chorus so complex and beautiful that it made her heart ache. Standing in their midst was a figure unlike any she had ever seen. A majestic bird, larger than the rest, with feathers that gleamed silver like moonlight on water. Its eyes held a depth that spoke of countless lifetimes, of memories and stories too vast for words. The great bird stepped forward, and the song softened, leaving only the faintest hum in the air. Its voice was low and resonant, vibrating through the city like the final note of a long-held chord. "Welcome, traveler," it spoke, each word carrying the weight of ages. "I am the keeper of songs, guardian of this city and its secrets." Lira bowed her head, words escaping her as she stood before this being. She felt small, yet honored, as if she was standing in the presence of something both fierce and kind. "You have come seeking the treasure of our city." The keeper continued, its gaze unwavering. "But such a gift is not easily given. The songs of this place are bound by ancient trials, and only those who prove themselves worthy may glimpse the path to the hidden treasure." Lira felt her heart flutter with anticipation and a flicker of fear. She had come so far, endured the endless forest, followed the whisper of a song, yet she knew that the true test still lay ahead. "What must I do?" she asked, her voice steady, though a tremor ran through her as the keeper's gaze seemed to pierce through her very being. The keeper extended one wing, pointing toward a path that wound away from the platform into the heart of the city. "To claim what you seek, you must complete 3 trials," it said. "Each trial will reveal a piece of who you are, testing the balance of your heart. First, the trial of compassion, where you must learn to give what is most precious. Then, the trial of humility, where you will confront the illusions of your pride. And finally, the trial of courage, where you must face the shadows that dwell within." The birds resumed their song, a melody now tinged with a solemn beauty, as if to bless her journey, yet remind her of its weight. Lira took a deep breath, feeling the cool, enchanted air fill her lungs. She nodded to the keeper, meeting its gaze with newfound determination. The path stretched before her, winding through the city like a thread drawn from the fabric of a dream. She felt both humbled and emboldened, aware that the trials would reveal more than she could foresee. Yet she knew that she must go forward. The treasure was no longer merely a prize. It was a truth that called to her, a song she was meant to learn and carry beyond the city's bounds. With one last glance at the keeper, she stepped onto the path, feeling the city's melody guide her, like hands steadying her from the unseen. And as she walked, the bird's song rose, filling the air with the promise of secrets yet unveiled and wisdom that lay beyond the trials she would soon face. The path before Lira was carved from translucent stone, its surface shimmering faintly beneath her feet. Each step she took felt like it resonated with the echoes of the city's song, a melody now shadowed with quiet intensity, as though holding its breath in anticipation of what lay ahead. Around her, the towers stretched upward, their spires shimmering in hues of deep sapphire and emerald. But the city's beauty was now cast in a solemn light. She knew that what awaited her would test the deepest parts of herself, and she steadied her heart, ready to face what lay beyond. The path wound toward a secluded grove nestled within the city. In its center, a small, injured bird lay on the ground, its feathers dull, its breathing shallow. Lira knelt beside it, her heart filling with a tender ache. She knew this must be the trial of compassion. Gently, she extended her hand, feeling an urge to help, though she was unsure how. As she reached out, the great keeper of songs appeared beside her, its silver feathers casting a soft glow over the grove. Its voice, low and resonant, filled the silence. To pass this trial, you must give something precious to heal this creature, it said, its gaze both kind and unyielding. But beware, true compassion does not ask for repayment, nor does it hold anything back. Are you prepared to offer your most treasured possession? Lyra's mind raced. She had brought little with her on this journey, save for a small crystal pendant, a gift from her mother, one that had been passed down through generations. It was the only reminder of home, a piece of her life she cherished deeply. She hesitated, feeling the weight of sentiment and love bound within that simple object. Yet, as she looked at the frail bird, something within her softened. With trembling hands, she removed the pendant, feeling its familiar warmth one last time before laying it beside the injured bird. The crystal glowed softly, its light sinking into the feathers of the small creature, mending the wound, restoring the brightness to its eyes. The bird looked up at her, its gaze filled with a gratitude that words could never capture, and took flight, disappearing into the endless sky above. The keeper inclined its head, an acknowledgement of her sacrifice. True compassion gives without reservation, it murmured. You have passed this trial, though your journey is not yet done. The grove faded into mist, and the path before her shifted, leading her toward the heart of the city once more. Lira followed, her steps lighter despite the absence of her treasured pendant. She felt a strange fullness, a warmth in her chest, as though she had gained something far greater than what she had given. The next trial led her to a grand hall lined with mirrors, each one reflecting an image of herself. Some mirrors showed her dressed in fine clothes, jewels glittering at her neck, her face proud and stern. Others reflected a version of her wounded and vulnerable, revealing the hidden fears she tried to keep buried. This was the trial of humility. The mirrors seemed to breathe, pulling her toward them with the lure of vanity and self-doubt alike. Her reflection in each mirror whispered words she longed to hear, promises of power, flattery that fed her pride, illusions that tempted her to embrace only the parts of herself that shone brightly. Yet the mirrors also mocked her, distorting her features, casting shadows that highlighted every insecurity. Lira closed her eyes, steadying herself, and forced herself to turn away from the alluring visions. She focused instead on the quiet voice within her, the one that understood her flaws and vulnerabilities without shame, the part of herself that was not swayed by illusions of grandeur or fear. She whispered a single truth to herself: I am only what I am, nothing more, nothing less. The mirrors grew still, their surfaces flattening, the distorted reflections melting away. Her own clear image stared back at her, whole and unembellished. The hall shimmered, dissolving around her as the path reappeared. You have faced yourself in truth, said the keeper's voice from the shadows. The heart that sees without illusion is a heart unburdened. With 2 trials behind her, Lira approached the final path, feeling a quiet resolve settle within her. The trial of courage awaited, and she knew it would be the hardest of all. The path led her into a shadowed cavern, cold and silent, its darkness pressing in from all sides. In the heart of the cavern, a flickering light appeared, and within it she saw shapes moving, figures from her past, the memories she had long buried, the mistakes she wished to forget. Her failures and fears rose up before her like phantoms, each one calling her name, taunting her with the mistakes she could not change. She felt herself weakening, doubt and regret pooling in her chest, threatening to pull her under. The temptation to flee, to turn back and escape from this darkness, clawed at her. But then she remembered the song, the melody that had called her here, the ancient music that had been her guide. She straightened, lifting her head, and faced the shadows with all the strength she could summon. I will not run from you, she whispered. You are part of my journey, but you do not define me. The shadows wavered, their forms softening as her voice resonated in the cavern. Slowly, they melted away, their whole loosening until only silence remained. The cavern filled with light, warm and golden, and she felt the weight of her fear lift. Emerging from the darkness, she found herself once more in the heart of the singing city, where the keeper of songs awaited, surrounded by birds whose voices rose in a chorus of triumphant melody. You have shown compassion, humility, and courage, the keeper said, its gaze filled with pride. The treasure you seek is now within reach. With a single gesture, the keeper pointed to a stairway that descended into the heart of the city. It glowed with a faint, welcoming light, and as Lyra took her first step down, she knew that her journey was nearing its end. Lira descended the staircase, each step echoing softly as she ventured deeper into the heart of the singing city. The walls around her pulsed with a faint light, casting shifting shadows that seemed to dance in time with the gentle hum of an unseen melody. The song was different now, no longer a grand chorus, but a single, quiet tune that wound its way through the stillness, drawing her forward with a sense of solemn purpose. The staircase spiraled downward, leading her into an ancient chamber nestled beneath the city. The air here was warm, tinged with the earthy scent of stone and something else, a sweetness she could not place, like the lingering fragrance of flowers long faded. At the bottom of the staircase, a vast cavern opened before her, bathed in a light that seemed to have no source, yet glowed with a brilliance that touched every corner. In the center of the cavern stood an ornate pedestal carved from a single piece of crystal that shimmered with all the colors of dawn. Resting upon it was a heart-shaped gem, translucent and pulsing with a soft golden light. The gem looked as though it had been forged from the first rays of morning, a piece of pure warmth and life. Lyra felt its warmth even from a distance, a gentle radiance that wrapped around her, filling her with a peace she had never known. She stepped forward, her gaze locked on the gem. She knew without words that this was the treasure she had sought, the culmination of her journey, the gift the city bestowed upon those who proved worthy. But as she reached out, her hand hovering over the gem, she felt the presence of the keeper of songs beside her once more. "This treasure," the keeper said, its voice a low whisper that resonated through the chamber, "is more than a gem or a relic. It is a piece of the ancient magic that sustains this city, a fragment of the song that binds all life together. It holds the wisdom of ages, the light of stars, and the warmth of the earth. But it is also delicate, for it requires a heart strong enough to carry it and gentle enough to protect it." Lira hesitated, feeling the weight of the keeper's words settle upon her. She understood then that the trials she had faced were not merely tests, but preparations. She had been shaped by compassion, tempered by humility, and strengthened by courage, all so that she could bear the responsibility of this gift. With a steady hand, she lifted the gem from the pedestal, its warmth seeping into her palm and radiating through her body. As she held it, the light within the gem flared, illuminating the cavern with a brilliance so pure that it brought tears to her eyes. She felt the weight of centuries, of lives lived, and lost, of joy and sorrow, all contained within this small, pulsing heart. It was as if she were holding a piece of the world itself. The keeper watched her, its silver feathers glowing in the light of the gem. This treasure is yours now, Lira, but it is not for you alone. The magic of this city flows through you now, and you carry its song in your heart. Take this gift and let it guide you, so that you may share its light with others. Remember, true treasure is not what one keeps, but what one gives. The words settled into her soul, and she felt a deep understanding blossom within her. This was not a treasure to be hoarded or hidden. It was a gift meant to be shared, a light meant to shine beyond the bounds of the singing city. She understood now why the city chose only the worthy, for only a heart that had known both joy and loss, courage and humility, could carry such a burden and gift with grace. As she turned to leave the chamber, the birds' song rose once more, swelling into a triumphant symphony that filled the air with light and life. Their voices wrapped around her, guiding her back up the staircase and through the city. She felt their music within her, woven into her very being, a part of her that would never fade. When she reached the edge of the singing city, she looked back one last time. The towers glimmered in the distance, half hidden by mist, as if already slipping back into legend. But the melody remained within her, a constant, steady hum that she knew would guide her steps, no matter where she went. Lira walked away from the city, feeling the weight of the gem against her chest, a warm reminder of the journey she had taken and the lessons she had learned. The mist parted as she passed, revealing the world beyond the veil of eternal forest. She was no longer just a traveler. She was a keeper of the song, a bearer of light, a part of something ancient and vast. And so she journeyed onward, her heart filled with the quiet song of the singing birds, carrying the hidden treasure not as a prize but as a promise, a reminder that even in the darkest places, there is a light that waits for those who seek it with courage, compassion, and an open heart. For though the city of the singing birds would one day fade from memory, its song would live on, whispered from heart to heart, a melody that would guide the worthy and the willing, a gift for those who dared to listen.